Number 10. Lil Uzi. Rappers usually get a bad rap, and this video probably won't do much good in terms of improving their reputation. Whether it's girls, violence, or wealth, most rappers choose one of these vices to show off to their audience. Lil Uzi Vert is pretty well known in the music industry and has boatloads of money, more than the average person would even know what to do with. In fact, it seems Lil Uzi himself is struggling to find ways to spend his cash. Just recently, Lil Uzi amazed and even angered internet users when he revealed a interesting look. The rapper got a new piercing, but not in his tongue or ear. Nope, in his forehead. And you'll never guess what he put there. A $24 million pink diamond. The reaction was mixed, to say the least. Some thought the gem piercing was cool, while others were dumbfounded how he could spend so much money on something so meaningless. And to make things better, not long after he got the piercing, his girlfriend posted a video online. The clip showed Lil Uzi and his girlfriend JT kissing and dancing, but viewers noticed one key thing missing: the diamond. The piercing had disappeared. After making such a big deal initially about the implant, Lil Uzi got rid of it so quickly. While many, including us, are extremely curious as to where the Pink Panther level diamond went, Lil Uzi and his team of representatives have yet to release a statement. Number 9. Christ Bearer. The Wu-Tang Clan is a legendary and elusive entity in the rap business, and one Wu-Tang rapper called Christ Bearer continues to amaze the world even outside his music. The world was equally fascinated and concerned when news struck of attempting to give himself a vasectomy right before taking a dive off a balcony. Now, when you hear about someone doing something so ridiculous to themselves, your first question is probably, why? But at this point, we've gone too far for a meaning with any substance. A year or so after the incident, Christ opened up about that night. Apparently, he'd been high off multiple drugs, including marijuana, PCP, and meth. On top of this, he was under the influence of alcohol and was suffering greatly from a lack of sleep. With all the drugs and exhaustion, the perfect scenario for a self-inflicted vasectomy accompanied by a quick leap of faith was born. You might think someone who did this to themselves would be ashamed, but Christ feels the opposite. He's really proud of himself, saying he's probably the only man who's ever accomplished such a task. Despite the obvious lack of self-awareness, at least this Christ is alive to tell the tale. Number 8. Unemployment fraud. A rapper going by the name Nuke Bizzle bragged in one of his YouTube music videos about how he'd gotten rich by committing unemployment fraud, and he has now been arrested for the crime of, yep, you guessed it, unemployment fraud. Thug life. The arrest happened in Los Angeles, with the charges being federal. The cops figured out the rapper had been carrying out a scheme that earned him about $1.2 million over the years. He was fraudulently applying for job benefits using stolen identities. The scheme really did make him rich, but his desire to rap about it on YouTube was what would ultimately lead to his arrest. Why is it that rappers always feel the need to rap about their crimes? According to ABC News, Nuke Bizzle's real name is Fontrell Antonio Baines, and he's from Tennessee. He's facing up to 22 years in federal prison if convicted of the 3 charges the prosecutors put against him: access device fraud, aggravated identity theft, and transportation of stolen property. He had about 92 debit cards, all loaded with the $1.2 million. And if he hadn't bragged about the crime, maybe he'd been able to spend some of that money. Number 7. HITMAN. So far, the stories we've covered have been fairly lighthearted, but buckle up and put on your big boy pants because it's about to get serious. No, really, you might want to prepare yourself. A young unknown rapper named Young QC was sentenced to 100 years in prison. While most people love their mother and would do almost anything for her, QC hated her guts. To outsiders, the reason for his distaste was unknown. It seemed like his mother was the perfect angel, giving her son everything he could have asked for, including a car and even his job. QC's hate went so far that he wanted his mother dead. He hired a man named Eugene Spencer to finish the job. After paying him off, Spencer followed QC's order, shot the mother, Yolanda Holmes, and knocked her boyfriend out. When Spencer called QC to tell him the job was finished, he was told to, quote, make sure that B is dead. So he stabbed Yolanda's dead body more. Before anyone found out about her death, Young took the money out of his mother's bank and got work done on his car. He even put out a video of himself on YouTube giving out money to fans of his music. Thankfully, not much time passed before Young was arrested and taken to court. With atrocities he incited brought to life, the judge and jury were appalled someone could be so heartless, especially to such a kind woman. Young was found guilty on charges of murder and is now serving the rest of his life in prison, where his rap career will tank. What do you think about Young's story? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below, and if you liked the video so far, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 6. Bulletproof. We continue our serious streak in the next story with a rapper named Londre Sylvester. The 31-year-old, also known by his stage name KTS Dre, was shot over 64 times by multiple gunmen. Londre had just gotten released from a jail in Chicago when two cars pulled up near him. The shooters exited the vehicles and proceeded to open fire at Londre. After they knew he was dead, the men got back into their cars and left the scene without a trace. Sadly, Londre wasn't alone when the shooting took place. Two other women were with him, one in her 60s and the other in her 30s. The older woman was struck by a bullet in her knee, while the younger's mouth was grazed. Thankfully, the two ladies were given medical treatment and are making a healthy recovery. The same can't be said for Londre, though. The young rapper had gone to jail over a gun charge. He was found carrying a gun around his neighborhood, a direct violation of his parole. It's unclear whether the men who killed him were enemies he made behind bars or someone else Sylvester could have wronged. Details of the case are still cloudy. But even with as little as we know, it's certain Sylvester deserves justice. Number 5. Travis Scott. Before COVID put a stop to most huge public events, music festivals drew crowds from around the world to see their favorite artists perform in one spot. Now, with the vaccine, social gatherings are quickly making a comeback, but some events should have waited a little longer before opening back up. One event in particular was the now infamous Astroworld Festival. Held in Houston, Texas back in November of 2021, rapper Travis Scott headlined the festival, drawing in crowds of over 50,000 people. During a performance of one of Travis's biggest songs, Sicko Mode, a commotion broke out in a sea of fans. People were crowding towards the front of the stage, causing a crowd surge. Concert goers were being pushed, crushed, and stepped on left and right. Once enough people figured the situation was becoming dangerous, fans pleaded to event staff and Travis to stop the show. And apparently he did pause his music multiple times to ask what was going on, but it was too late and not enough. After the events of Astroworld, 9 people died, including a 9-year-old child named Ezra Blunt, who was put in a coma after suffering heavy injuries at the festival. On top of the deaths, hundreds claimed to have gotten hurt at the event. With so much tragedy, people wanted someone to blame, and Travis was put in the spotlight. Twitter users argued that he should have done more to ease the crowd's tension and help those that were hurt. The rapper responded online with a message saying his heart goes out to the victims and their families. But even with this, many weren't satisfied. An organization known for online counseling service called BetterHelp teamed up with Travis to offer therapy to those affected by the Astroworld tragedy. Many claimed this move was not sincere and seemed like a cash grab in wake of the disaster. Multiple victims and loved ones of those that fell that night have filed lawsuits against Travis and the festival itself. Charges including reckless conduct could also be placed on Travis for his hand in the events. Number 4. Daylyt. On a much lighter note, we shift our focus to a rapper named Daylyt. During a performance in Phoenix, the young man pulled down his pants and tried to take a poop on stage in front of a crowd of people. At first, the staff at the show stood back, unsure what was happening, but right before the feces came out, they quickly removed Daylyt from the performing area. Sometime after that night, Daylyt recalled the events, a bit annoyed. He seemed upset that they just didn't let him do his business. He said the facility's owner gave him bad vibes and called him a racist slur as he was being kicked out. You might ask why Daylyt chose to relieve himself on stage instead of, a bathroom? Well, it turns out the Phoenix crowd wasn't all that into his music, and they let him know it too. The audience booed Daylyt as he performed, which he says is why he decided to take a crap on stage to boo-boo them back. Yes, as you can tell, the maturity of this man is off the charts, just like his rap career. Number 3. Big Lurch. When you hear the word cannibal, you probably think of Hannibal Lecter or maybe some hidden tribe buried deep in the Amazon. However, the cannibal we're talking about today is just a man from Los Angeles named Antron Singleton, also known as Big Lurch. The aspiring rapper met up with his friend Thomas Moore to smoke a drug called PCP. After sustaining an injury in a drunk driving accident, Singleton used drugs to help ease his pain. He knew he could rely on Moore to have that drug that made him comfortable and soothe the darkness. So, one night when the pain was unbearable, Singleton knew where he could find relief. He visited Moore's apartment, but he wasn't there. Tanisha Size, Moore's girlfriend, was home alone when Lurch arrived. He barreled his way in, knocking a scared Tanisha over in the process. When she started screaming in fear, he beat her up to shut her down. At this point, Tanisha was nearly out for the count from Lurch's punches, so he was free to tear up the place looking for the drugs, but he couldn't find them. In pain from his injury and anger, he took a knife and stabbed the poor girl over and over. Lurch wasn't in his right mind, but he also wasn't satisfied with just killing Tanisha. He cut open her chest, took one of her lungs, and ate it raw. Dripping with blood and high off his kill, Lurch took all his clothes off and ran out into the streets butt naked. Witnesses called the police to report the naked, crazed man covered in blood running around and acting crazy. When authorities finally arrived, they arrested him. After the dark nature of his crime was uncovered, the rapper Big Lurch was charged with first-degree murder and given a sentence of lifetime in prison. Number 2. Tyler the Creator. Out of all the current musicians in the industry, there are few stranger than the rapper Tyler the Creator. With his unique style, masterful lyrics, and hilarious personality, he's drawn millions of fans to his music, which continues to evolve and grow to this day. Despite his genius musicality, Tyler has his fair share of controversy. Perhaps one of the biggest stories he's been a part of happened in 2014 at the South by Southwest Music Festival. We know from the Astroworld story how quickly a music festival can turn dangerous. With that many people gathered in one place, it's nearly impossible to keep everyone at bay, especially if dangerous activity is being encouraged by the performer. During his time slot, Tyler encouraged fans outside of the event to push past fences and security staff in order to get to his show. This soon turned into a small riot. The venue was well beyond full capacity already, with the hundreds of extra people trying to wedge themselves into the mosh pit. While he might have made a few fans happy, Tyler's actions were not treated lightly, since they could have resulted in many injuries. Video footage of the event shows Tyler telling people to, quote, "just run in right now, do it, let's go," end quote. With this concrete evidence against him, he was arrested for the incident. Even with this in his past, it seems Tyler has matured a bit in the years since. While maintaining his eclectic charm, he continues to be a heavy hitter in the industry to this day. Number 1. Chainz. Even if you aren't a fan of the genre, you've probably heard of the name Chainz. A prominent rapper, Chainz and his groupies were traveling on his tour bus when a police vehicle pulled them over. The officer claims the stop was made due to one of the bus's taillights being out, but the situation soon escalated. When the cop came up to the entrance of the bus, he could smell a strong odor of marijuana, which usually allows the officer to conduct a search. But Chainz and his crew refused to comply. Chainz later put out a message online saying his bus is stopped almost once a week to be searched, and this time they weren't in the mood. The rapper refused to leave the vehicle for 9 hours until the police were able to get a formal search warrant. When all was said and done, Chainz and his 11-member entourage were all placed under arrest for obstruction. Thanks for watching. Were you surprised by any of these stories? See any rappers you like on this list? Let us know in the comments. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more videos like these from the channel. See you next time on The Bad Badger.